Hello everyone, Pepper Hernandez from drpepperhernandez.com, also coming directly to you from the Cannabis Holistic Institute. We're educating cannabis therapy consultants to really step out into the world. So if you're a healthcare provider, a practitioner in the holistic realm, or even in the allopathic realm, and you want to know a little bit more on cannabis, actually a lot more on cannabis, then this is a program for you. So go over and check it out if you'd like. So today we're going to be starting a new series, Hemp versus Cannabis, and we'll be going into this a little bit deeper in each of the coming videos, but today I just want to give us an overview of what we're going to be discussing. First off, there's a lot of talk about CBD hemp-derived and CBD cannabis-derived. I will talk to you about that as the videos come, but just let me state clearly right now, CBD coming from hemp versus CBD coming from cannabis, you're going to be missing the whole entire molecular synergy structure of what cannabis has to offer. Now, even though hemp and cannabis are technically from the same flower family, right? So say, for example, a rose and a rose varietal, whatever another one would be, or even say a lily. They're both flowers, right? But they're not necessarily the same, and neither one of them have exact components of the other. So hemp and cannabis are different in that way. The one thing, I'm going to move this just a little bit, I think a little closer. There we go. So you can see it a little bit better maybe. I think the one big thing that is the distinguishing factor between hemp and cannabis is that hemp is under 3% THC. Actually, most hemp, especially industrial hemp, that's going to have no THC whatsoever. So there's no psychoactive effects, there's no mental shift or in that way. Cannabis is going to have up to 30% THC. So we're talking about quite a bit. And it used to be like in the high 20s, that was pretty, or the mid 20s even, was a really, really intense form of THC. But now we're finding them all the way up into the 30s. You know, I would say up to 30%. I actually heard of a strain here in Humboldt County that has 32% THC. So we're getting up there in saturation point. Now, another big point is not just the composition of hemp versus cannabis, but also legalities around hemp and around cannabis. Now, hemp itself has always been controlled, or previously it was controlled, and now it's federally legalized, whereas cannabis is still illegal. Why is that, you say? Because cannabis has the THC and hemp does not. So hemp has CBD, it has a very range varietal of the cannabinoids, but when we're talking about, for my specifics, when we're talking about medicine, I look at cannabis that has THC, that has the entourage effect, or has the whole entire molecular synergy structure, right? Where hemp, for me, is more towards, now, you could use it on topically. You can use hemp seeds internally for the essential fatty acids, omegas, those kind of things. That's great for textiles. That's great for fabric and things like in this way. But when we're talking about pure medicine for each and every body system, cannabis is just going to have way more to offer us than hemp. Now, of course, you know, if that's all you have in your area and that's the only thing that's legal, grab yourself some CBD hemp derived. Make sure it's not an isolate. Make sure the hemp is an actual organic hemp farm, that it's not industrial hemp, because industrial hemp is definitely for textiles, fabrics that should not be consumed, in my opinion. So back to legalities. That's the one thing that is pushing the difference between hemp and THC. Eventually, I think this is all just going to blow over and everything's going to be legal, because there's no reason why not. Now, there does need to be some legislations and some limits on, you know, how we're using THC, because without someone really being there to discuss how THC can affect the body on a psychological and psychoactive way, that education needs to be instilled for anyone who's using THC, because you can't overdose, but you can definitely get way more altered than you're expecting when consuming THC. Now, here's a fun fact. If you've done too much THC coming from the cannabis plant, you can counterbalance that, almost balance it in a homeostatic way from using either hemp, CBD, or just a really, really intense cannabis CBD. So to balance out to balance out THC, use CBD. Now, if you're not getting your ultimate peak of THC that you would like, then there are things that you can do to maybe kind of uplift that and get yourself a little bit more in an altered state. That would be things like black pepper or mangoes. There are different things that have particular terpenes that interact with the cannabinoids to kind of make them a little bit more to get you higher, really, is what I should say. But the third thing that's a big difference between hemp and cannabis is the cultivation process, the way it's grown, the way it's harvested, how it's being used, the different conditions that hemp can grow in versus cannabis. Cannabis is very particular, especially if you're growing more of an indica-based plant or a sativa dominant plant. Those grow differently than hemp. Hemp probably, and I've spoke to many farmers up in the Pacific Northwest, and what I found out is that hemp is a lot easier to grow, obviously, than trying to cultivate hemp for particular flower production only, because really that's the most important part of cannabis. Well, I mean, you can use roots, you can use the stems, you can use the leaves. Those are all extremely important. But when people are thinking about cannabis, they're thinking about the flower, because that's where we're going to have our THC, where our trichomes are good, juicy, everything is there. Where hemp, you can use the whole entire thing. You can use the stalk, everything for your clothing and fabrics. Which brings me to number 4, usage. Each of them, the hemp and the cannabis, they have their own ranges of uses based on their composition. So cannabis, for example, that composition, you can really look at what I'm coining the cannabis fingerprint, and that cannabis fingerprint, like every single human being has a different one. Each cannabis plant has a different fingerprint as well, and that fingerprint is going to have a combination of terpenes as well as cannabinoids. And when we look at that plant having a high amount of cannabinoids, say we're looking for a high CBG or a high CBD or a CBN, or we want something high in that but low in THC. So we're going to find the right cultivar or strain that has that particular composition. And then also, if we know, say we're working on the nervous system, for example, we know that the nervous system benefits from linalool terpenes, right? Linalool is a terpene that's found in lavender. So we will look for a cannabis varietal that has, or cultivar that has this composition that we're looking for. Hemp doesn't have that ability. We don't have that ability to isolate and dial in hemp. Hemp is just, it's great, and I'm not anti-hemp. And when I say hemp versus cannabis, it's not one or the other. It's what are the differences between. So we'll go a little bit deeper into all of these really soon. But I just wanted to give you an overview. Thank you so much for tuning in. Again, Pepper Hernandez from drpepperhernandez.com. If you're interested in checking out the Cannabis Holistic Institute, please pop over there. We have over 20 speakers, and at this point in time, we're just gathering more and more data, information, conferences that we go to. We have speakers from mostly Humboldt County sharing their knowledge with you. We have educated professionals who have been putting this into practice for generations now. So tune in with me again soon and have a wonderful, magical, beautiful day. Bye.